Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, December 4th, 2017. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm very happy to be joined by the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. And we will get to recruiting later in the show. We have plenty of it. This show will be a fusion of college football playoff talk and recruiting talk. Let's get into the sad part of the show right away, Bill. The Ohio State, the first team out, the number 5 team. And you have to think they barely missed with Alabama making it as the 4th team in the college football playoff. But this comes a week after committee chair Kirby Holcutt said that there was a razor-thin difference between teams 5 through 8. Ohio State beats Wisconsin, the number 4 team in the nation. Alabama stays home, and still Ohio State does not jump Alabama. Just your reaction to Ohio State not making the playoffs.
Well, I can't say I was surprised. I leading up to that, I was talking to my wife and others, and I said I don't think Ohio State is going to make it based on everything that happened, and I just felt like the committee was going to pick Alabama. Now, me thinking it that way and not being surprised is different than how I feel about it. I wasn't surprised, but I can't say I agree with that decision by the committee. In fact, I don't agree with that decision by the committee. I really feel, Dave, that had any other school, for the most part, had Alabama's resume, they would not have gotten in. I think that decision was based on Alabama's reputation and resume. Committee would not say that. That's just my opinion. But let's say that Washington State had the exact same resume as Alabama. I don't think Washington State would have got into that playoff. And the fact Joel Klatt, I think, made some very good points. And, the bottom line is that decision, and our own Steve Hellwagon, I believe, tweeted this, that decision would encourage you not to schedule tough teams, because if Ohio State plays Mercer rather than Oklahoma, there's virtually no doubt in my mind Ohio State was in that championship game as a one-loss team. So it really hurt Ohio State. Now, did they take care of business at Iowa? No, they didn't, and I understand that. But still, had they not played Oklahoma or played Mercer instead, I think they would have been in.
I agree with you. Very well said on all points. The consolation prize, and I know nobody wants to hear about a consolation prize, but it is a pretty good one if you're going to have a consolation prize. Playing USC in the Cotton Bowl on Friday, December 29th. It'll be the only game in town Friday night, 8:30 at Jerry World, 8:30 Eastern. Interestingly, I did a little research on this, and I knew throughout my life USC, even since I was a little kid, had always beaten Ohio State. I didn't remember during my life ever Ohio State beating USC, and I was right. In my lifetime, Ohio State has not beaten USC. The Trojans have beaten the Buckeyes 7 straight meetings. So Buckeyes are overdue. The Buckeyes have not beaten USC since 1973. Your thoughts about this matchup with USC, Bill?
Well, I did not realize it's been that long since Ohio State has beaten them, and I think it's a great matchup for Browns fans to potentially see their next quarterback. But if Darnold wants to go into that situation, which that's a whole other story. But so we should have a lot of viewing interest, not only from Ohio State fans, but Cleveland Browns fans. But I think it is a good matchup. I think it's an exciting matchup, and Big Ten, it's kind of old school, except it's not in the Rose Bowl. I kind of grew up watching the Rose Bowl and all that, and certainly in those years, Ohio State and USC played. It seemed like in those days every year, but it really wasn't. But I think it's a great matchup, and if you can't make the playoff, I guess I think it's the next best thing. The only thing that's disappointing a little bit is that to me is that Ohio State barely missed the playoffs, and they're not even playing on a New Year's Day bowl, and I think that's a little bit of a disappointment to me.
All right, let's get into recruiting. I have 10 names jotted down. We'll talk just 2018 recruiting. Buckeyes putting the finishing touches on their 2018 class, ranked number 1 in the country. They have 18 commitments. And I jotted down, 10 guys that are at least strongly considering Ohio State, if not even more than strongly considering Ohio State. I want to give you to give the scoops on all these guys, Bill. We will start right at the top. Offensive tackle, Jackson Carman. What is the latest with Jackson Carman? Do you think he'll be a Buckeye?
Well, he's going to make these last 2 visits, Clemson, followed by USC. Everybody still feels Ohio State with the competition coming from Clemson. But as I posted yesterday on Bucknuts, the USC visit, they get the last shot. And, I've been told by more than one person that, he has an interest in going away. And by away, I mean far away. And he wouldn't be taking this USC visit if he didn't have that interest as a possibility. So my feeling right now, I still think in the end that the Buckeyes are going to get him. But I wouldn't put my confidence meter, so to speak, extremely high right now. I think that's where I would go with it, but let's see what happens on these 2 visits coming up.
Where's your confidence meter at on Anthony Cook, of course, corner from Houston, Texas?
No, he's still considering the 3 schools. He doesn't know exactly when he's going to decide, but he's got to decide soon here because he plans to graduate early, so he's got to make his decision soon here. I really had thought that by talking to people at that school that he would have decided by now, but obviously it's a little bit harder decision than he felt like it was going to be. I still think in the end he's going to go to Texas.
Next player on the list, another corner, Tyson Campbell from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. What's the latest on Tyson Campbell?
Well, I think he's long been someone that has indicated a visit to Ohio State was coming, but I haven't felt for some time that even if that visit is made, an official visit I'm speaking of, that it's going to be Ohio State. I think in the end that Tyson Campbell will go with Miami would be my prediction at this point.
All right. Big defensive tackle, Tommy Togiai from Idaho. Really hotbed recruiting area for Ohio State, of course, Idaho. It's my little joke. But what's the latest on Tommy Togiai? You think he'll be a Buckeye?
Well, it's down to, even though Utah has made a strong push in the past couple of weeks, it's still, I would be absolutely shocked if it's not Washington or Ohio State. And we'll know, we'll have a little bit better idea after tomorrow night because the big guys are coming in, so to speak. Larry Johnson was visiting Togiai on yesterday, and Larry Johnson and Urban Meyer are going to make their in-home visit on Tuesday. So there's nobody better. I think that's an unbelievable twosome to make a home visit if you're getting you're making your last pitch of Urban Meyer and Larry Johnson, because it doesn't come any better than that. But having said that, if I had to predict right now, I'd go slightly Washington on that one. But
not
slightly.
good news for the Buckeyes.
I still think Urban and Larry Johnson can do it, but I'm going to lean slightly, very slightly to Washington at this point.
Well, I love your honesty. You don't blow smoke. Give us the real deal. I like it. I mean, hopefully as you said, there couldn't be a better situation as far as closers. You have Urban Meyer and Larry Johnson going in for the close. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep a close eye on Tommy Togiai. Okay, about 6 more guys here. I have 6 more guys specifically to ask you about. Wide receiver Kamryn Babb from St. Louis. What is the latest on Cam Babb?
I think he's going to be a Buckeye. I've crystal balled him to Ohio State, and just simply put, I'd be very surprised if Kamryn Babb doesn't take one of those remaining wide receiver slots in the Ohio State 2018 class.
All right, the only kid from Ohio that I have jotted down here, defensive end Tyreke Smith from Cleveland. I know he's considering Penn State and the Buckeyes. It keeps going back and forth, it seems like. What's the latest with Tyreke Smith? Do you think he'll be a Buckeye, Nittany Lion, or maybe somewhere else?
Right, USC's in there too, and I've said for a long time it's going to come down to one of those 3 schools: Ohio State, Penn State, USC. I think it is going to come down, as you first mentioned, between Ohio State and Penn State. I think it will be one of those 2, although USC again is still in the mix and still a possibility. This one is really, really hard for you to predict. I know that. The family is very impressed with James Franklin and the job he's done and is doing at Penn State. I know Tyreke has really been impressed with Ohio State as well as Penn State. I think it's just going to be a really hard decision predicting which way he's going to go. If I had to predict right this minute, we've got some time yet because he's not announcing until January 4th at the Under Armour game. So there's still some time, and a lot can happen, a lot can change between now and January 4th. But if I had to pick right now, I'm going to go away from the crystal ball, which is favoring Penn State, and I'm going to go with Ohio State right now.
There we go, Buckeye fans. You're liking that. Buckeye fans need some good news, but Bill's not going to lie to you. He's going to give you the straight scoop. Rasheed Walker, offensive tackle from Maryland. What's the latest with Rasheed Walker, Bill?
Yeah, that's another one tough to pick, and I think this is going to come down to Ohio State or Penn State. In this case, I have been favoring ever so slightly Ohio State, but my meter is starting to switch a little bit. Right now, I would go with Penn State on him. Right now, he is scheduled to make his official visit there coming up this weekend. Let's see how that goes, and let's see how things go with Ohio State. He has indicated he's going to make an official visit to Ohio State. Right now, again, I would probably swing a little bit towards Penn State on that one, and that's a switch for me.
Interesting. Another offensive tackle, kid out of Chattanooga, Walker Culver. What's the latest on Walker Culver?
Well, he is scheduled as of right now to make an official visit to Virginia Tech this coming weekend. My gut feeling is that visit doesn't happen. If it does, then I think we're in a totally different situation that maybe that would perhaps open things up a little bit. But my gut feeling is it doesn't happen, that he goes ahead and commits to Ohio State, announces the commitment to Ohio State, and does it sometime this week. We'll see what happens, but he's one of the guys that I feel comfortable, along with, you mentioned Kamryn Babb, for instance, as saying that is going to be a Buckeye.
All right, a couple more guys will get you out of here. Defensive end Jayson Oweh from New Jersey.
Yeah, it's another Ohio State-Penn State battle. Notre Dame is fighting in there. Michigan is now in the picture. This is a good old-fashioned battle, like 15, 20 years ago when it seemed so many of the top recruits were deciding between Ohio State, Michigan, and Notre Dame, and all three schools are in there along with Penn State. Right now, I would go with Penn State as the selection for Jayson Oweh. But again, this one's tough to call. I don't think Ohio State's out of it. I think Michigan is now in it. Alabama is working their way into the picture, Notre Dame. So this is a good one, but I'll go Penn State on that one at this point.
And last but certainly not least, safety Tyreke Johnson from Jacksonville. What is the latest on Tyreke Johnson, Bill?
Well, I've had him crystal ball for Ohio State for a little while now, so that kind of tells you my feelings on that. I talked to a source, I think it was a couple weeks ago, that pretty close to the Tyreke Johnson situation, and they told me that they really felt good from, being around the family and things, that Tyreke Johnson was going to be a Buckeye. And, I think that was just, again, I've got him crystal ball to Ohio State, and I think that says that I feel pretty strongly that Tyreke Johnson will be a Buckeye. And by the way, he would come into Ohio State as a cornerback, but he's also an outstanding safety. So providing I'm right and Ohio State gets him, they've got a guy that could fill two slots just in case they would need another safety in the class. Jaden Woodby, of course, has been wavering a little bit, but in the end, it's always great to have guys that have versatility, and Tyreke Johnson would provide that.
Awesome stuff right there. And if you like that, Bill has a podcast every week called the Dean Cast. It's brand new. He's had like 2 episodes so far, so it's still hot and fresh out the kitchen. So make sure every week you catch Bill's podcast, the Dean Cast. And, it might vary as far as which day, but every week we will have the Dean Cast featuring Bill Kurelic, so make sure you check that out. Before I let you go, Bill, real quick, they have 18 commitments right now in the 2018 class. We just talked about 10 guys. Obviously, all 10 of those guys are not going to be in the class. If you had to put a number on it, how many, I know it's fluid, how many do you think will be in this 2018 class for the Buckeyes?
23 to 25. I think we didn't talk about Pele Gaotti, the 5-star linebacker from Las Vegas Bishop Gorman High School. He's making an official visit to Ohio State this weekend. I had that news on Bucknuts this week. He's making his Ohio State official visit this weekend. And let's say they came down to a point where they were at 24 and Gaotti doesn't sign on National Signing Day, which is possible. He may wait till afterwards. They're not going to turn him away. They're just not. That's not going to happen. So, while I say 23 to 25, that's because there could be some surprises at the end, like a Gayote that they would never turn away. But I think, as you know, Dave, it also depends on who leaves early for the NFL, and we've been shocked on that, to say the least, of some of the decisions that have made. So who knows who ultimately makes the final decision and leaves early for the NFL.
Great stuff from the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. Again, you can catch his podcast every week on Bucknuts, the Dean Cast. Make sure you check that out. Must-listen material. So thank you very much, Bill, and thank you to all listeners out there for tuning into the show. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.